Picture this: you're standing in the middle of a crowded room when suddenly everything goes wrong. The presentation you spent weeks preparing crashes. The client you're pitching to starts shaking their head. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and for a moment the room feels like it's spinning. Now imagine something different. Imagine standing in that same moment, but instead of panic, there's calm. Instead of fear, there's focus. The client's reaction doesn't shake you. The technical glitch doesn't derail you. You respond with clarity, poise, and unshakable confidence. That's not luck, that's not magic, that's Stoicism in action. For centuries, the greatest leaders, thinkers, and warriors have relied on Stoic principles to navigate chaos with unbreakable resolve. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while facing betrayal and war. Epictetus endured slavery and emerged as one of history's wisest teachers. These weren't superhuman figures, they were people who mastered the art of mental discipline. And here's the best part: you don't need a throne or a battlefield to use these tools. The same hacks that kept emperors steady under pressure can help you stay untouchable in traffic jams, work crises, or personal setbacks. Today, we're diving into 25 Stoic practices that will transform how you face adversity. These aren't just ancient philosophies, they're actionable, modern-day mental upgrades. You'll learn how to disarm insults before they sting, how to turn obstacles into fuel, and how to cultivate a mindset so resilient that no bad day can knock you off course. Whether you're dealing with a toxic coworker, a missed opportunity, or the weight of everyday stress, these principles will give you the same unshakable foundation that guided history's toughest minds. This isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about mastering them. By the end of this journey, you won't just handle challenges, you'll welcome them. Let's begin. The first and most powerful Stoic hack is understanding the dichotomy of control. This idea cuts through life's noise like a blade, separating everything you encounter into two simple categories: what's within your power and what isn't. Your thoughts, actions, and reactions, yours to command. The weather, traffic, other people's opinions, entirely outside your hands. Picture a commuter stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, gripping the wheel, face flushed with frustration. Now imagine that same person sitting back, accepting the delay, and using the time to listen to an audiobook or reflect on their day. The traffic didn't change, but their suffering vanished the moment they stopped fighting what they couldn't control. This principle transforms disasters into inconveniences. Take job loss, a blow that can feel personal and paralyzing. The Stoic response: you can't control the company's decision, but you control how you update your resume, network, or learn new skills. The anxiety of "what if I never recover" shrinks when you focus only on the next actionable step. Relationships work the same way. You can't force someone to respect or love you, but you can choose to communicate clearly, set boundaries, or walk away with dignity. Every time you catch yourself spiraling over an outcome you can't dictate, pause and ask, "Is this my burden to carry? If not, drop it." Studies show that nearly half of daily stress comes from resisting what we can't change. The irony: the moment you stop wasting energy on uncontrollables, you reclaim that energy for what matters. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Think of it as mental decluttering. By ruthlessly focusing on your circle of control, you free up space for creativity, solutions, and peace. Try this today. When stress hits, write down 2 columns: my actions and everything else. Then cross out the second column. What's left is where your power lies. An argument with a friend: you can't control their feelings, but you can control your apology or your decision to let go. A missed promotion: you can't rewind the decision, but you can prepare twice as hard for the next opportunity. The dichotomy of control isn't about giving up, it's about fighting smarter. Master this and you'll cut anxiety off at the root, replacing helplessness with unstoppable agency. This hack isn't just philosophy, it's a practicality. Ancient warriors used it to stay calm in battle. Modern CEOs use it to navigate market crashes, and you can use it to turn everyday chaos into a playground for growth. The key isn't knowing the concept, it's applying it the moment life tries to shake you. So next time frustration bubbles up, ask yourself one question: is this mine to fix? If the answer's no, take a deep breath and redirect your energy where it actually counts. Now let's shift to an even more counterintuitive tool, one that turns fear into fuel. Negative visualization might sound pessimistic, but the Stoics saw it for what it truly is: an immunity shot against life's unpredictability. Here's how it works. Instead of dreading potential disasters, you intentionally walk through them in your mind, not to wallow, but to disarm their power. Imagine standing on stage for a speech, your throat tightening as you spot scowls in the crowd. Your hands tremble, your voice cracks, and the room erupts in laughter. Brutal, absolutely. But now ask yourself, what would you do next? Would you crumble or adjust your posture, crack a joke, and keep going? That mental rehearsal strips the scenario of its terror. Seneca, the philosopher who advised emperors, practiced this daily. Before meetings with the volatile Nero, he'd visualize everything from insults to execution. Extreme, maybe, but when Nero eventually ordered his death, Seneca met it with eerie calm, comforting his grieving wife instead of pleading for mercy. His preparation had made the unthinkable manageable. Modern psychology calls this stress inoculation, exposing yourself to controlled doses of adversity to build tolerance. Pilots train in flight simulators for engine failures. Surgeons mentally rehearse complications. Why? Because when you've already faced the worst in your mind, reality's curveballs feel slower and softer. Here's your exercise. Pick a current worry, say a job interview. Close your eyes and vividly imagine the harshest version. You stammer, the panel exchanges bored glances, and you leave knowing you blew it. Sit with that discomfort until your pulse steadies. Now script your comeback. Maybe you send a follow-up email highlighting other strengths, or use the rejection to pivot toward a better fitting role. The goal isn't to manifest failure, it's to prove you'll survive it. This hack isn't about pessimism, it's about liberation. By repeatedly visiting your worst-case scenario, 3 things happen. First, you realize most catastrophes are survivable. A missed promotion won't starve you. A breakup won't stop your heart. Second, you spot hidden exits. If your business fails, you've built skills to start another. Third, and most profound, you start seeing today's ordinary moments as gifts. That morning coffee tastes richer when you've imagined losing your home. Your partner's laugh feels warmer after visualizing their absence. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, not to dwell on darkness, but to sharpen your gratitude for the light. Try it tonight. As you lie in bed, mentally erase one blessing: your health, your savings, your closest relationship. Sit with that hollow feeling, then snap back to reality. Suddenly, that stiff neck or dwindling checking account doesn't seem so dire. The Roman general Scipio Africanus used this before battles, whispering to himself, "This too shall pass, whether victory or defeat." That's the ultimate payoff of negative visualization. When you stop fearing loss, you start living with a fearlessness that no setback can shake. So don't just hope for the best. Prepare for the worst and watch how lightly you'll walk through life's fire. Most people wake up and immediately reach for their phones, scanning emails, social media, or news that sets their nerves on edge before their feet even touch the floor. The day hasn't started, but anxiety already has. The Stoics flipped this script with a morning ritual so powerful that it turned ordinary people into unshakable thinkers. Instead of reacting to chaos, they prepared for it not with worry, but with strategy. Your third Stoic hack is the pre-dawn mental rehearsal. Picture Marcus Aurelius, ruler of Rome, starting his day not with demands or distractions, but with a quiet reminder: Today I shall meet interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. Notice what's missing: surprise. By naming potential obstacles up front, he stripped them of their power to derail him. This wasn't pessimism, it was emotional armor. Here's how to adapt this ritual. Before checking notifications, take 3 minutes to sit upright and ask, what challenges might today throw at me? Not to dwell on them, but to preemptively craft your response. A traffic jam. I'll use the time to listen to a podcast. A critical coworker. I'll respond with facts, not frustration. Even small frustrations, spilled coffee, a missing file, lose their sting when you've already envisioned yourself handling them smoothly. Modern research backs this. Studies on implementation intentions show that deciding in advance how to face triggers reduces stress by up to 40%. Athletes visualize missed shots before games. Emergency drills save lives. Why? Because preparation replaces panic with poise. Your template is simple. 1. Name the challenge. My presentation might get tough questions. 2. Script your response. I'll pause, breathe, and reframe objections as curiosity. 3. Anchor it in values. This is my chance to demonstrate grace under pressure. Contrast this with the average morning scrolling through headlines that spike cortisol, rushing out the door on autopilot, then feeling ambushed by every hiccup. The Stoic ritual doesn't just soften blows, it transforms you into the kind of person who sees obstacles as training grounds. Epictetus, born a slave, taught his students to greet dawn with gratitude and readiness. Let death and exile and all terrible things appear before your eyes daily. Extreme, maybe, but when you've mentally rehearsed losing your job, a flat tire becomes trivial. When you've imagined illness, a rainy day feels lighter. This practice isn't about expecting the worst, it's about realizing you can handle far more than you fear. Close your eyes now and try it. Tomorrow's challenge, whether a tense meeting or a looming deadline, already feels less daunting because you faced it on your terms first. That's the secret. The day doesn't dictate your mood, your preparation does. Start tomorrow not with avoidance but with quiet readiness. The chaos will come either way, but only one approach leaves you unshakable. Ever feel like your problems are swallowing you whole? That argument with your partner, that looming deadline, they balloon until they block out everything else. The Stoics had a remedy for this, and it's one of their most breathtaking mental tools: the view from above. Marcus Aurelius didn't just rule an empire, he trained himself to see it from space. In his private writings, he'd zoom out mentally, picturing bustling cities as tiny dots, armies as ants clashing on a speck of land. Suddenly, his stressors shrank to their true size, fleeting, insignificant against the vast canvas of time and space. Close your eyes for a moment and try it. Imagine floating high above your neighborhood, watching cars crawl like toys, people moving like grains of sand. Higher now, see your city as a patch of light, your country as a shape on a globe. Keep going until the earth is a pale blue marble dangling in the black void. That fight you had, invisible, that work drama, gone. This isn't about dismissing your struggles, it's about seeing them in proportion. Astronauts call this the overview effect. When they see Earth from orbit, no borders, no noise, just a fragile sphere, their priorities permanently shift. One described how petty conflicts back home seemed absurd when viewed against the cosmos. Another realized his lifelong grudges were wasting air in my own spacesuit. That's the power of perspective. It doesn't erase problems, but it reveals how much room we give them to dominate our mental sky. The Stoic version isn't about escapism, it's a reset button. When stress mounts, ask, will this matter in 10 years, 100, on my deathbed? Most of what feels urgent today won't even be a memory tomorrow. The colleague who undermines you, the rude stranger, their actions are brief sparks against the backdrop of centuries. Marcus wrote, remember how small the stage is on which all this is performed. Here's how to practice it daily. Next time overwhelm hits, pause and mentally zoom out. Picture your current crisis as a single frame in a film reel of your life. Then pull back further. See your lifespan as a blip in human history, Earth's timeline, the universe's expanse. Feel the weight lift. That's not numbness, it's clarity. The bills, the gossip, the setbacks, they're still real, but now you're holding them, not the other way around. Think of it like adjusting a microscope. Sometimes you need to examine life's details closely, but when emotions blur your vision, the view from above pulls focus. The entrepreneur obsessing over a failed product launch sees it differently when picturing the countless inventions lost to time. The heartbroken lover stings less when remembering how many hearts have broken and healed since the dawn of humanity. This hack isn't about shrinking your life, it's about expanding your peace. Try this tonight. Stand outside, look up at the stars and whisper Marcus's line, "The universe is change, life is opinion." Those two sentences unravel most suffering. Everything changes, your sadness, your obstacles, even you. And what ruins your day is often just your opinion of events, not the events themselves. The view from above doesn't solve problems, it dissolves the illusion that they're insurmountable. Suddenly, you're not a victim of chaos, you're a speck of stardust observing the dance. Imagine waking up and choosing the cold shower instead of the hot one, not by accident but on purpose. Skipping breakfast not because you're late, but to remind yourself that hunger won't break you. This is voluntary discomfort, Stoicism's secret weapon for building unshakable resilience. The ancient Stoics didn't just tolerate hardship, they invited it. Seneca slept on hard floors. Musonius Rufus ate simple meals of bread and water. These weren't acts of punishment, they were training exercises for the mind. Modern science backs this up. Studies show that people who regularly expose themselves to controlled discomfort, cold exposure, fasting, or physical challenges develop higher pain tolerance, better stress resilience, and even improved immune function. Navy SEAL use cold water immersion to prepare for extreme conditions. CEOs like Jack Dorsey credit fasting for mental clarity. The link is clear. The more comfortable you are with discomfort, the less life's unexpected blows can shake you. Here's your 30-day challenge designed to stretch your limits without breaking you. Week 1, cold showers. Start with 10 seconds at the end of your usual shower, gradually working up to a full minute. Week 2, intermittent fasting. Skip breakfast once or twice, replacing it with water or herbal tea. Week 3, digital minimalism. Leave your phone at home for short errands or disable notifications for set hours. Week 4, physical endurance. Take the stairs instead of the elevator or add 5 extra minutes to your workout. By the end, you'll notice something profound. The small discomforts you once avoided now feel trivial, and the big ones, they're manageable. The magic lies in rewiring your brain's response to stress. Research from the University of Wisconsin found that individuals who regularly practice discomfort like cold exposure show reduced activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center. Another study in the Journal of Health Psychology revealed that fasting improves emotional regulation, helping people stay calm under pressure. Voluntary discomfort isn't about suffering for its own sake. It's about proving to yourself that you're stronger than your cravings, excuses, and fears. Consider the athlete who trains in bad weather. When race day brings rain, they're unfazed. They've been there before. That's the Stoic mindset. By voluntarily facing discomfort, you remove its power to ambush you. A missed meal becomes a chance to appreciate food deeply. A chilly morning walk sharpens your focus. Even rejection loses its sting when you've practiced sitting with the discomfort of not being liked. Epictetus, who endured slavery and exile, put it bluntly, difficulty shows what men are. When you deliberately step into discomfort, you discover reserves of strength you didn't know you had. Start small, decline the extra snack when you're already full. Take the less comfortable seat on the train. Each choice is a vote for your future self, the one who won't panic when life gets hard. The goal isn't to live in perpetual hardship, but to ensure comfort is a preference, not a necessity. Try this reframe next time discomfort looms. This is my training. The hunger pang, a reminder that you can thrive without constant satiation. The cold shower, a jolt to your system, waking you up to your own endurance. Every voluntary act of discomfort is a brick in the wall of your mental fortress. And when life inevitably throws its worst at you, you'll stand firm, not because you're immune to pain, but because you've already faced it and won. Most people think journaling means dumping thoughts onto paper, a messy brain spill with no direction. Stoic journaling is something else entirely. It's not about venting emotions, it's about dissecting them with surgical precision. Picture Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, hunched over parchment by candlelight, not chronicling his victories, but interrogating his own flaws. That's the first clue this isn't your typical diary. The Stoic method follows 3 deliberate steps: assessment, correction, and reinforcement. Start with a simple prompt: what went wrong today? But here's the twist: you're not allowed to blame external factors. The traffic didn't make you impatient. You chose impatience when traffic stalled. That coworker didn't cause your anger. You allowed their comment to trigger you. This shift from passive victim to active participant is where the magic happens. Next comes the correction phase. For every failing, you script a better response. When the meeting ran late, I snapped at my team. Next time, I'll pause and ask if rushing will truly save time or just spread stress. This isn't self-scolding, it's mental reprogramming. Ancient Stoics called it the discipline of assent, training yourself to pause between stimulus and reaction. Modern psychology confirms this works. Studies show that writing detailed, if-then plans reduces impulsive reactions by up to 40%. Finally, reinforcement. End each entry by anchoring to a core virtue: courage, wisdom, justice, or temperance. Marcus often reminded himself, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, your version might be, today I'll embody patience by listening fully before responding. This transforms journaling from navel-gazing to a daily character workout. Here's a real-world example. Before Stoic journaling, my boss criticized my report. I hate how she micromanages. After, I resented the critique because it threatened my self-image. Truthfully, her feedback improved the project. Next time, I'll separate ego from growth, virtue focus, humility. See the difference: one fuels resentment, the other fuels progress. Your downloadable template mirrors Marcus's structure: 3 columns. Event, my role, better path. The prompts aren't fluffy. What are you grateful for? They're precision tools. Where today did I confuse things I control with things I don't? When did desire for comfort override my principles? This isn't comfortable work. But like a blacksmith tempering steel, each session forges mental resilience. Try this tonight. Write 1 sentence about a frustration, then dissect it with these questions. Did this situation control me, or did I control my response? What false belief made this bother me? Within a week, you'll spot patterns. Maybe you're quick to take offense when feeling insecure, or you catastrophize minor setbacks. That awareness is your leverage point. Epictetus, who taught Stoicism to Rome's elite, insisted his students journal because the mind assumes the color of its thoughts. Translation: what you repeatedly examine, you can change. Most people let their minds autofill with whatever life throws in. Stoic journaling, that's manual override mode, where you decide who you become. That moment when your pulse spikes, your jaw clenches, and your body seems to move faster than thought. That's where the Stoic pause works its magic. Between the trigger and the reaction lies a microscopic window of possibility, and mastering it is like installing an emergency brake for your emotions. Picture this: someone cuts you off in traffic, your hands tighten on the wheel, heat floods your chest. The old you might honk, yell, or tailgate, but the Stoic version. You notice the anger like a scientist observing a storm cloud, recognizing its presence without letting it dictate your next move. That split-second pause, practiced consistently, rewires your brain's threat response system. Neuroscience explains why this works. When a perceived threat hits, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, fires a distress signal before your prefrontal cortex, the rational planner, can weigh in. It's why insults feel like punches and setbacks like disasters. But research from Stanford shows that deliberately slowing your reaction by even 2 seconds shifts activity from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. Each time you pause, you're literally strengthening neural pathways that favor calm over chaos. Try it with these common triggers. When criticism lands, instead of defending or attacking, say internally, "I feel my shoulders tensing." This is a signal to breathe. When a coworker interrupts, notice the flash of irritation, then ask, "Will reacting improve this situation?" The pause isn't passive, it's power in reserve. Epictetus framed it as the gap between impression and assent, writing, "Don't let the force of an impression carry you away. Say to it, 'Hold on, let me see who you are.'" Road rage offers a perfect training ground. Most drivers escalate because their brains mistake disrespect for danger. Next time another driver acts aggressively, label the emotion aloud. That's frustration. Naming it activates the brain's regulatory centers, reducing its intensity. Then, insert a physical interrupter, adjust the AC, take a sip of water. These micro actions buy time for rationality to catch up. The long-term payoff, what begins as a forced pause becomes automatic. Studies tracking mindfulness practitioners found that after 8 weeks, their amygdalae shrank while prefrontal areas thickened, proof that disciplined pauses physically reshape your brain. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, jotting reminders like "no yelling, no haste." His goal wasn't to suppress emotions, but to choose his battles wisely. Here's your challenge. Pick one recurring trigger this week, maybe a family member's nagging or a slow internet connection. When it fires, deploy the pause like a mental reflex. First, notice the reaction without judgment. Second, name the emotion. Third, ask if acting on it serves your values. Over time, you'll catch yourself smirking at triggers that once ruined your day. That's the Stoic pause in action, not eliminating emotion, but ensuring you, not your amygdala, get the final say. Death isn't morbid to the Stoics, it's the ultimate wake-up call. They called it Memento Mori, the practice of remembering your inevitable end, not to scare you, but to sharpen how you live. Picture Steve Jobs standing in his Palo Alto garden each morning, staring at his reflection and asking, "If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do?" When the answer was no too many days in a row, he knew it was time to change. That question didn't paralyze him. It propelled him to leave Apple, found Pixar, and return to revolutionize technology. The Stoics weren't alone in this. Japanese samurai wrote death poems to ground themselves in impermanence. Mexican culture celebrates Dia de los Muertos with joy, not fear. Even modern psychology confirms that confronting mortality, when done right, boosts meaning and reduces trivial worries. A Harvard study found that people who reflected on death spent 30% more time pursuing passions and 25% less time on distractions. Death awareness isn't about darkness, it's about dialing up the contrast on life's brightest moments. Here's your 7-day challenge to harness this power. Day 1, write your eulogy, not the safe, polite version, the real one. What would people honestly say about how you spent your time and energy? Day 2, erase an obligation. Cancel one commitment that wouldn't matter if you had a year left. Day 3, time travel to 80. Ask your future self what regrets you're currently creating, then adjust course. Day 4, the last meal test. If this were your final dinner, who would you invite and what would you discuss? Day 5, digital mortality. Scroll through your photos, asking which memories you'd fight to keep if time were short. Day 6, legacy math. Calculate how many weekends or summers you likely have left. Then schedule something worthy of that dwindling number. Day 7, the daily death check. Each morning, place a coin in your pocket. At day's end, ask, did I live like this? Was my last chance to hold it? The magic of Memento Mori lies in its alchemy. It transforms procrastination into action, pettiness into grace, and noise into music. A fight with your sibling feels different when you imagine standing at their grave, wishing for one more conversation. That project you've delayed, less intimidating when viewed through the lens of, what if I never get to finish it? Even mundane moments, a shared laugh, sunlight through trees, become vivid when you realize they're finite. Seneca put it brutally, you act like mortals in all that you fear and like immortals in all that you desire. We waste years assuming we'll have time later to reconcile, to create, to love deeply. Memento Mori shatters that illusion. When the Roman general Scipio Africanus celebrated victories, he kept a skull on the banquet table, not to kill the mood but to elevate it. His guests drank sweeter wine, hugged tighter, and spoke truer words because death sat with them. Try this reframe next time monotony sets in. This could be the last. The last bedtime story with your growing child, the last lazy Sunday with your aging dog, the last chance to call that friend you've been meaning to reconnect with. Death isn't waiting at the end, it's walking beside you, pointing to what's precious. The Stoics didn't dwell on dying to depress themselves, they did it to erupt fully awake in the life they're already living. Start your Memento Mori practice today and watch how urgently and joyfully you begin to move. Amor Fati, Latin for love of fate, isn't about passive acceptance. It's about embracing every twist, obstacle, and even disaster as if you'd chosen it yourself. Imagine your car breaks down on the way to a job interview. The old you panics, rages at the universe, and spirals into "why me?" the Stoic version. You take a breath, call the recruiter with a calm explanation, and use the waiting time to rehearse your answers. That shift from resisting reality to working with it is the difference between suffering and strategy. Nietzsche, who admired Stoicism, called Amor Fati his formula for greatness. He wrote, "My formula for human greatness is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." This isn't just philosophy, it's a survival mechanism honed in history's darkest corners. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who endured Nazi concentration camps, demonstrated this brutally. Starving, freezing, and facing near certain death, he focused not on the horrors around him, but on the one freedom no guard could take, his ability to choose his response. In his memoir Man's Search for Meaning, he describes prisoners who shared breadcrumbs with weaker inmates, who found purpose in imagining future lectures about their suffering. Frankl didn't just survive Auschwitz, he transformed it into evidence that meaning can flourish even in hell. Here's how to practice Amor Fati with a recent setback. Let's say you were passed over for a promotion. First, relabel the event. Instead of unfair rejection, call it redirection. Second, mine for hidden gains. Maybe this forces you to network elsewhere, revealing a better fitting role. Third, act as if you'd orchestrated it. What skills might you deliberately build because of this plot twist? Studies on post-traumatic growth show that people who reframe adversity as a catalyst often emerge stronger than those who never faced it. Cancer survivors start nonprofits, laid-off employees launch businesses. The common thread, they stopped asking, "Why did this happen?" and started asking, "What can this make possible?" The Stoics took this further with a radical exercise, pre-rehearsal of consent. Before embarking on any endeavor, a journey, a project, a relationship, they'd mentally consent to every possible outcome, even failure. Seneca wrote, "The fates guide the willing and drag the unwilling." Modern entrepreneurs echo this. Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, credits her success to her father's daily dinner question, "What did you fail at this week?" By normalizing setbacks, he taught her to see them as data, not disasters. Try Amor Fati today with a minor annoyance, a cancelled flight, a rude customer. Silently say, I welcome this. Notice how resistance melts into curiosity. The missed connection becomes chance to read. The rude remark becomes a test of your patience. Amor Fati doesn't mean pretending pain doesn't hurt. It means trusting the wound will reveal its purpose in time. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly, the obstacle is the way. Every barrier is secretly a path if you have the eyes to see it. Frankel's campmates who lost the will to live didn't die from hunger or cold. They died from broken meaning. His antidote, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude. That's Amor Fati in its purest form, not just enduring fate, but embracing it as the raw material for your unshakable self. Think of premeditatio malorum as your mental fire drill, not just imagining worst-case scenarios, but running full-scale rehearsals in your mind until fear loses its grip. The ancient Stoics didn't stop at vague worries like, what if I fail? They drilled into granular details. What if my ship sinks and I'm enslaved? What if my child dies? What if Rome exiles me? Morbid on the surface, yes, but beneath that lies an ironclad truth. By staring into the abyss before it stares back, you rob it of power. Here's how to upgrade from passive visualization to active preparation. Start with a current anxiety, say, public speaking. First, set the scene. Picture walking onstage to audible whispers, your slides failing, your voice cracking. Now deepen the details, feel the sweat on your palms, see the front row attendee rolling their eyes, hear your own shaky breath. Next, script your response. Maybe you pause, acknowledge the tech glitch with humor, and continue without visuals. Finally, anchor to purpose. Remind yourself that even a disastrous talk won't revoke your worth. This 4-step drill, scene, details, response, purpose transforms abstract fears into navigable terrain. History's greatest strategists used this method. Eisenhower planned D-Day by obsessing over every possible failure: tides, weather, misdropped paratroopers. His teams rehearsed for months, not to guarantee success, but to ensure no surprise could paralyze them. Modern psychology mirrors this. A study in cognitive therapy and research found that people who practiced detailed, mental contrasting, visualizing obstacles alongside solutions, achieved 32% higher goal success rates than those who just fantasized about outcomes. Your turn. Pick a high-stakes situation, a crucial negotiation, a medical diagnosis, a cross-country move. Now break it down like a Stoic general. 1. Identify 3 worst-case outcomes. E.g., the client walks away, the test results are grim, the movers damage your belongings. 2. Map each domino effect: lost deal, right arrow; temporary cash flow, dip, right arrow; opportunity to pivot services. 3. Design a survival protocol. Reach out to 3 backup clients, activate emergency savings, etc. This isn't pessimism, it's emotional armor. Seneca wrote, "The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." When you've mentally lived through bankruptcy, betrayal, or illness, their shadows shrink. You stop fearing the unknown because you've already cataloged the monsters under the bed and stocked the tools to face them. Try tonight's 5-minute drill. Lie in bed and mentally simulate a true nightmare scenario: losing your job, your home, your health. Then, step by step, walk yourself through rebuilding. Where would you sleep? Who would you call? What skills could you barter? The goal isn't to dwell on darkness, but to prove you'd still find light. That's the ultimate payoff of premeditatio malorum. When you've rehearsed surviving the unthinkable, daily stresses feel like training weights heavy but never crushing. The Stoic archer stands with bow drawn, eyes locked on the distant target. He focuses on every detail: the angle of his elbow, the tension in the string, the stillness of his breath. He releases the arrow with perfect form, and then he lets go, not just of the bow, but of the outcome. Whether the arrow hits the bullseye or misses entirely is no longer his concern. This ancient metaphor, first coined by the Stoic philosopher Chrysippus, reveals a profound truth about where true control lies. Modern life bombards us with targets, promotions, perfect relationships, viral social media posts. We obsess over results while neglecting the only thing we actually command, our effort. Think of a job interview. You can rehearse answers, research the company, and dress impeccably. But you can't force the hiring manager to choose you. The Stoic approach: pour everything into preparation, then walk in with the mindset, my role is to present my best self. The decision is theirs. This isn't apathy, it's liberation. Studies in sports psychology confirm this. Athletes who focus on process goals, keep my elbow tucked during the shot, outperform those fixated on outcome goals, win the game, because they're directing energy where it has impact. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, mirrors this exact principle. A core technique, decatastrophizing, teaches patients to separate actions from results. Someone with social anxiety might believe, if I stumble over my words, everyone will think I'm incompetent. CBT challenges this by asking, can you control others' perceptions? What evidence proves one stumble defines you? Just like the Stoic archer, the patient learns to focus on showing up authentically, not scripting others' reactions. Research shows this reduces performance anxiety by up to 60%. Consider a musician auditioning for a symphony. The Stoic prepares meticulously, then views the performance as a showcase of craft, not a verdict on worth. If rejected, they ask, did I give my best? If yes, the outcome is feedback, not failure. This mindset shift is why Stoic philosophers like Epictetus, who endured slavery, could say, it's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters. The archer doesn't rage at the wind for deflecting his arrow. He adjusts his aim and draws again. Apply this to daily frustrations, stuck in traffic. You can't teleport cars, but you can choose to listen to a podcast or practice patience. A rejected proposal, you controlled the research and pitch. The client's budget constraints weren't yours to manage. Even parenting fits the analogy. You model values and provide support, but your child's choices belong to them. The ultimate test comes when effort and outcome clash. You train for years but miss the Olympic team. You save a marriage but your partner still walks away. Here, Stoicism offers its sharpest wisdom: define success internally. The archer's victory isn't the target's verdict, it's knowing he shot with full integrity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the cucumber is bitter, then throw it out. There are brambles in the path, then go around. That's all you need to know. In other words, do what you can with what you have and let the rest go. Try this reframe next time you face a high-pressure situation. List every element within your control: preparation, attitude, effort, and those beyond it: others' decisions, luck, external judgments. Pour energy solely into the first column. Like the archer, you'll find a paradoxical peace. The less you cling to results, the more consistently they arrive. Because when you stop straining for outcomes, you free yourself to excel in the process. The circle of influence takes the Stoic concept of control and sharpens it into a practical tool, a map for your mental energy. While the dichotomy of control splits the world into two broad categories, the circle of influence helps you visualize exactly where your power scales. Picture 3 concentric rings. At the center, your direct control, thoughts, behaviors, and choices. The middle ring, your indirect influence, relationships, projects, and efforts where outcomes depend partially on others. The outer ring, everything else: global events, the past, others' opinions, where your leverage is negligible. Most people exhaust themselves pushing against the outermost ring, like shouting at a storm to change direction. Here's how to map yours. Grab paper and draw those 3 circles. Now list current stressors in each. That critical coworker, if they're in your indirect influence ring, your energy goes toward clear communication, not changing their personality. A family member's health crisis, you can't control their prognosis, outer ring, but you control showing up with groceries or researching treatments, inner rings. One study participant, a marketing director drowning in anxiety, used this method religiously. She realized 70% of her worries lived in the outer ring: competitors' strategies, industry trends, a co-worker's promotion. By shifting focus to her direct control, skill building, client outreach, and indirect influence, team collaboration, her anxiety plummeted within weeks. The magic lies in reallocating attention like a financial budget. Every hour spent obsessing over the outer ring is a withdrawal from your mental reserves with zero ROI. Case in point, a startup founder fretted daily about venture capital fluctuations until he mapped his circles and realized his actual leverage lay in refining his pitch and networking. Within months, his refined focus attracted investors who'd previously ignored him. Marcus Aurelius modeled this with military precision. As emperor, he couldn't single-handedly stop barbarian invasions outer ring, but he could control troop training and logistics inner rings. The lesson: stop trying to move mountains, focus on the pebbles you can carry, and watch how their cumulative weight shifts the landscape. Tonight, try this audit. For every worry, ask which ring owns this. If it's outer, visualize placing it outside a literal fence and turning your back. If it's inner, script one action, no matter how small, to address it. This isn't about ignoring problems, it's about attacking them where you're armed. The circle of influence doesn't shrink your world, it sharpens your impact. And when you stop wasting energy where you're powerless, you'll be stunned by how much power you actually hold. Objective representation is the mental scalpel that cuts through emotional inflation, a tool to dissect any event down to its bare, neutral facts. Picture this: your boss storms into your office, slams a report on your desk, and snaps, "This is unacceptable." The untrained mind spirals into panic. "He hates my work. I'm getting fired. My career is over." Now watch the Stoic rewrite the script. Same event, stripped of interpretation. "My boss placed a report on my desk and spoke loudly." No labels, no projections, just observable reality. This shift from loaded narrative to clinical observation is what keeps Navy SEAL alive in firefights and Stoics steady in chaos. SEAL teams train in a technique called combat labeling. When bullets fly, they don't think "we're trapped," they narrate "enemy fire from the northeast." 300 meters to cover, magazine at 40%. By converting panic into data, they bypass the amygdala's hijack and access the prefrontal cortex's problem-solving power. A study in military psychology found that operatives using this method made 28% fewer errors under live fire than those relying on instinct alone. You don't need a battlefield to apply this. A relationship conflict: "She ignored my text because she's mad at me," becomes "My text remains unanswered for 6 hours." A financial setback: "I'll never recover from this loss," transforms into "My portfolio decreased by 15% this quarter. The facts haven't changed." But the emotional tax vanishes when you stop paying it with imagined catastrophes. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. Rather than lamenting Rome's corruption as unbearable, he wrote, "Certain people act deceitfully at court." Neutral, uncharged, this clarity let him govern effectively despite the toxicity. Modern psychology calls it cognitive diffusion, creating space between you and your thoughts so they lose their grip. Research from the University of California shows that people who reframe stressors in neutral terms experience 35% lower cortisol spikes during challenges. Here's your exercise. Next time stress hits, grab paper and split it into 2 columns. Left side, the emotional story, e.g., "My presentation bombed because I'm incompetent." Right side, just the facts. 3 audience members checked their phones during my second slide. The moment you spot the difference between what happened and the meaning you assigned, power returns to your hands. Epictetus, born into slavery, mastered this. What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about things. That flat tire isn't ruining your day. It's 12 inches of deflated rubber on pavement. The delayed flight isn't a nightmare, it's a gate change and a new departure time. Objectivity doesn't erase problems, it reveals their true size, often far smaller than the shadows they cast in your mind. Try it now with a past event that once rattled you. Strip away every subjective label: humiliating, unfair, disastrous. What's left? Raw data. And from that clean slate, you can choose a response rather than react to a fiction. That's the secret seal and Stoics share. When you stop describing the world in flammable language, you stop getting burned. The reserve clause is the Stoic's secret weapon against disappointment, a simple mental addendum that transforms any plan from fragile to unbreakable. Here's how it works. Whenever you set an intention, you silently append the phrase, "fate permitting," or, "as the gods will," booking a vacation. "I'll fly to Paris on Friday, fate permitting." Up for a promotion, "I'll secure that role if nothing prevents it." This isn't superstition, it's a psychological safeguard against the universe's unpredictability. Consider two travelers at a cancelled gate. The first clenches their fists, muttering, "This wasn't supposed to happen." The second exhales and thinks, "I planned to board at 6, fate had other ideas." Same event, radically different suffering. The reserve clause doesn't prevent the delay, it prevents the emotional tailspin. Ancient Stoics called this adding the exception clause, hupix herses, and modern psychology confirms its power. Studies on expectation adjustment show that people who mentally prepare for disruptions report 30% less frustration when they occur. Epictetus, who was crippled by a cruel master, used this daily. Before teaching a class, he'd remind himself, "I'll lecture today unless the classroom burns down." Dark humor, maybe, but when Emperor Domitian later banished all philosophers from Rome, Epictetus simply packed his scrolls and left while others raged at the injustice. His preparation had immunized him against shock. "Here are your scripts for common letdowns: missed promotion. I gave my best effort though the committee chose differently. Cancelled flight. I intended to arrive tonight, weather had other plans. Failed project. We executed our strategy, market forces shifted. Notice the pattern." Each acknowledges effort without demanding a specific outcome. The reserve clause isn't resignation, it's reality checking. Neuroscience reveals why this soothes the brain. When expectations rigidly fix on one result, dopamine plummets if it fails. But flexible expectations keep dopamine steady, making adaptability feel rewarding. Compare two chefs. One vows, "My restaurant will earn a Michelin star this year." The other thinks, "I'll craft exceptional dishes critics will judge as they see fit." Both work equally hard, but only the second is armored against disappointment. Marcus Aurelius modeled this as emperor, writing, "When you set out to do something, remind yourself what nature it has. Starting a nice bath, prepare for interruptions. Someone will spill oil, scream, or burst in." Test this today. Add the reserve clause to 3 plans: a workout, a work deadline, a social gathering. When hiccups arise, observe how much lighter they feel when you've already signed an invisible contract with chaos. The Stoics didn't avoid making plans, they avoided the tyranny of assuming those plans were guaranteed. That's the subtle superpower of the reserve clause. It lets you strive fiercely while sitting loose to results, turning life's curveballs into curiosities rather than crises. The Stoics drew a line in the sand between two easily confused concepts, character and reputation, and then planted their flag firmly on the side of character every single time. Reputation is what others think about you. Character is what you know about yourself when no one's watching. The difference sounds simple, but in a world obsessed with likes, follows, and public perception, this hack is a radical act of defiance. Imagine two politicians. One crafts every speech to polls and focus groups, while the other speaks hard truths even when it costs them votes. History remembers which one slept soundly at night and which left a lasting legacy. Take Cato the Younger, the Roman senator who became Stoicism's living emblem. When Julius Caesar offered him power and pardon in exchange for abandoning his principles, Cato chose exile, poverty, and ultimately suicide rather than compromise. His contemporaries called him stubborn. Later generations called him the conscience of Rome. The lesson: reputation fluctuates with the winds of opinion, but character is bedrock. Marcus Aurelius faced the same test. Surrounded by flatterers in the imperial court, he wrote reminders to himself. It's silly to try to escape other people's faults. They are inescapable, just try to escape your own. Modern psychology confirms this ancient wisdom. A Harvard study tracked professionals over 20 years and found that those obsessed with reputation burned out twice as fast as those focused on competence and ethics. Why? Because reputation is a fickle master. You can do everything right and still be misunderstood, while character is a compass that always points true. Here's your 3-question self-audit. 1. The silent test. If no one ever praised you for an action, would you still do it? 2. The shadow test. What would you dare to say or do if there were no social consequences? 3. The mirror test. Could you look yourself in the eye after this choice and feel no shame? The answers reveal where your energy flows toward curating an image or cultivating integrity. Socrates drank hemlock rather than betray his teachings. Emily Dickinson published fewer than a dozen poems in her lifetime, preferring authenticity over fame. Their reputations are relevant next to the inner fortitude they forged. This doesn't mean ignoring feedback or becoming socially reckless. It means treating reputation as a byproduct, not a target. Think of Serena Williams adjusting her serve. She focuses on biomechanics, not crowd cheers, knowing excellence speaks louder than applause, the Stoic version. Be like a rocky promontory against which the waves break. It stands firm while the waters foam around it. Try this challenge for 1 week. Make decisions as if your reputation didn't exist. Donate anonymously, share an unpopular opinion kindly, walk away from gossip. Notice the freedom when your worth isn't outsourced to others' judgments. That's the Stoic secret. When you stop polishing the mirror others hold up to you, you start seeing yourself clearly for the first time. The discipline of assent is Stoicism's masterclass in mental self-defense, a way to intercept destructive thoughts before they hijack your emotions. Picture this: someone cuts you off in traffic and instantly your brain serves up a steaming plate of rage. That jerk did that on purpose, but here's the twist: that initial interpretation isn't fact. It's just your mind's first draft. The discipline of assent teaches you to pause, examine that draft like an editor, and ask, is this story true or just the loudest version my ego wants to believe? Start by dissecting a recent emotional reaction. Say your friend cancelled plans last minute. Your default script might scream, they don't value me. Now apply Stoic scrutiny. First, separate the event from the judgment. The cancellation is fact. The "they don't care" narrative is optional. Next, interrogate the evidence. Have they flaked before? Did they offer a reason? Could illness, work stress, or family drama explain it? Finally, consider alternative interpretations. Maybe they're overwhelmed, not indifferent. This isn't about making excuses for others. It's about freeing yourself from false stories that amplify pain. Cognitive distortions crumble under this lens. Take personalization, assuming everything revolves around you. A colleague's bad mood becomes "they're mad at me" until you challenge it. Could they be sleep deprived? Did their kid have a meltdown this morning? Or catastrophizing, predicting doom from minor setbacks. A missed deadline spirals into "I'll get fired" until you ask, what's the actual consequence? A conversation, a revised timeline. Studies show that people who practice this kind of cognitive restructuring reduce anxiety symptoms by 40% in 8 weeks. Epictetus, who turned this discipline into an art form, framed it as the gap between impression and assent. He wrote, "Don't let the force of an impression carry you away. Say to it, wait, let me see who you are and what you represent." Modern therapists call this cognitive distancing, a stepping back from thoughts to see them as passing clouds, not undeniable truths. Try it now with yesterday's emotional spike. Replay the moment, but this time pause the mental tape where your reaction kicked in. Write down the trigger, what happened, the impression, your initial interpretation, and the reality check, alternative explanations. That space between stimulus and response, that's where your power lies. The more you widen it, the less any outside event can shake your peace. Marcus Aurelius honed this skill ruling an empire. When senators plotted against him, he'd note, they do this because they believe it's right, refusing to add villainous motives where ignorance or fear sufficed. That's the discipline of assent in action, not denying emotions but ensuring they're warranted before letting them take the wheel. Master this, and you'll catch your mind spinning fictions, then choose whether to hit print or delete. The Stoics didn't just tolerate obstacles, they flipped them upside down like alchemists turning lead into gold. This mental shift isn't about positive thinking, it's about strategic repurposing. Imagine hitting a dead-end road. The average person U-turns in frustration. The Stoic surveys the scene, realizes the detour passes a stunning vista, and thinks, now I get a view I'd have missed otherwise. That's the essence of this hack, not denying the obstacle's existence, but revealing its hidden utility. Thomas Edison embodied this flawlessly. When fire destroyed his lab in 1914, burning years of research and prototypes, reporters expected despair. Instead, Edison greeted the ashes with eerie calm. Thank goodness all our mistakes were burned up, now we can start fresh. Within weeks, his team rebuilt better, leading to breakthroughs like the nickel-iron battery. Edison didn't just recover, he weaponized the disaster. Modern psychology calls this benefit finding, and studies show cancer patients who practice it experience less pain and faster recovery. The obstacle, whether illness or failure, becomes the whetstone that sharpens resilience. Here's your 3-step challenge to apply this today. 1. Name the obstacle. Pick a current frustration, a delayed project, a strained relationship, a financial hiccup. 2. List its hidden gifts. Ask, what skills could this force me to develop? What assumptions does it shatter? What connections might it reveal? A delayed product launch becomes time to refine quality. A breakup becomes space to rediscover independence. 3. Activate one upside immediately. If traffic steals your time, use it to call an old friend. If a rejection stings, let it fuel your next iteration. Marcus Aurelius framed obstacles as the fire that tempers the sword. When the Roman emperor faced betrayal, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. Neuroscientists now confirm this mindset lights up the brain's problem-solving regions, while resistance triggers stress hormones. The obstacle itself is neutral. Your labeling determines whether it's a roadblock or a ramp. Consider the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold lacquer. The cracks aren't hidden, they're highlighted as part of the object's history. That's the Stoic approach to setbacks, not erasing them, but letting them reveal your capacity for reinvention. Your turn, grab paper and reframe 3 obstacles before this video ends. The flat tire becomes forced stillness, the critical feedback becomes free coaching. The missed opportunity becomes a redirection. Every barrier holds a secret door. You just need to turn the knob. Close your eyes and picture the wisest version of yourself, not some mythical figure, but the highest potential of you. This is the Stoic sage visualization, a mental model so powerful it guided emperors through crises and slaves toward freedom. The sage isn't perfect, just unshakably clear. They know when to act and when to let go. They meet chaos with calm, insults with indifference, and opportunities with measured action. Now imagine stepping into their shoes. How would they handle that looming deadline? That toxic relative, that risky bet? The answer isn't just inspiring, it's a blueprint for your next move. Neuroscience reveals why this works. When you vividly imagine a future self, your brain activates the same regions as if you were actually living that moment. A Harvard study found that participants who visualized their ideal selves for 5 minutes daily became 23% more likely to make choices aligning with that vision. The Stoics didn't need fMRI scans to know this, they practiced it daily. Seneca wrote letters to his future self asking, "What would the wiser version of me advise?" Marcus Aurelius began mornings by asking, "What would the person I'm becoming do today?" Here's your 3-minute ritual to bring this to life. First, define your sage traits. Maybe they're patient when others panic, generous when slighted, or decisive when tempted to procrastinate. Next, cast them in a scene. Picture your sage in your current challenge, seeing a layoff as a redirection, a breakup as growth fuel, a conflict as a chance to practice grace. Finally, script their dialogue. What would they whisper in your ear right now? This isn't personal, just another test of your principles. The obstacle is the training. To cement this, set recurring calendar alerts labeled WWSD. What would the sage do? Pair them with trigger moments before meetings, after tough calls, when anxiety spikes. Over time, the gap between your reactive self and your sage narrows. One executive used this before negotiations, asking, "Would my sage chase the extra dollar or protect the relationship?" Another visualized their sage during sleepless nights, realizing she wouldn't spiral, she'd rest to face tomorrow fresh. The magic lies in specificity. Don't just imagine a vague, wise person. Build your sage profile like a character. How do they stand, speak, breathe during chaos? Maybe they pause 10 seconds before responding, or smile at petty insults, or treat every no as a not yet. The more detailed the vision, the harder it is for your lesser self to hijack the reins. Epictetus, who rose from slavery to become Stoicism's greatest teacher, framed it as stepping outside yourself. Imagine you've been taken captive by pirates. The fool panics, the sage adapts, learning their language, studying the stars to navigate, turning captivity into an education. That's the ultimate payoff of this visualization. You stop seeing problems as threats and start seeing them as raw material for the person you're becoming. Try it now with a current struggle. Close your eyes and watch your sage navigate it effortlessly. Then ask, what's one thing they do differently than me today? That small shift, replacing "I can't handle this" with "how would they handle this," is the difference between reacting and rising. The sage isn't some distant ideal. They're the next iteration of you, waiting in the wings. All you have to do is call them on stage. Controlled laughter is the Stoic's secret lens for shrinking problems down to size, not by ignoring pain, but by refusing to let it monopolize your perspective. Picture a comedian on stage the night after a devastating breakup, cracking jokes about heartbreak so sharp they make the audience wince and laugh in the same breath. That's not denial, it's defiance. The Stoics called this the view from above meets the grin from within. When life serves you lemons, you don't just make lemonade, you sprinkle in a dash of absurdity and toast to the cosmic joke. Take Chrysippus, the philosopher who literally died laughing after watching his drunk donkey try to eat figs. Extreme, maybe, but his death became the ultimate lesson. Even the darkest moments hold a sliver of ridiculousness if you're willing to look. Modern psychology backs this. Studies show that patients who use humor to cope with chronic illness report 30% lower pain levels and higher resilience. Comedians like Tig Notaro, who turned her cancer diagnosis into a legendary stand-up special, embody this Stoic hack perfectly. She didn't laugh instead of grieving, she laughed while grieving, letting the two coexist. Here's how to practice it without turning into a court jester. First, spot the irony. Your flight gets cancelled and you're stranded in an airport with a $20 meal voucher. Instead of fuming, narrate it like a documentary. And here we see the modern human trapped between a Cinnabon and existential despair. Second, upgrade the script. When someone insults you, imagine they're a cartoon villain with a squeaky voice. The insult doesn't change, but your ability to take it seriously evaporates. Third, share the absurdity. Text a friend about your disastrous date or botched presentation with the emoji equivalent of a shrug person shrugging. Humor shared is suffering halved. The key is balance. Stoic laughter isn't forced positivity or toxic mockery. It's acknowledging that life's tragedies often come wrapped in farce. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, but even wrestlers chuckle when they slip on a banana peel." When a project crashes or a plan implodes, ask, "How might I laugh at this in 5 years?" Then fast forward. The blunder that feels like a catastrophe today becomes tomorrow's dinner party story. Comedian Patton Oswalt's response to losing his wife suddenly. He joked about eating garbage meals in his grief, then pivoted to profound insights on loss. That's the sweet spot where laughter doesn't erase pain but refuses to let it dictate the terms. Your turn. Next time chaos strikes, channel your inner stand-up philosopher. The traffic jam isn't just frustrating, it's a masterclass in patience with a side of bad radio. The burnt toast isn't a breakfast fail, it's a charcoal art experiment. By framing setbacks as material for your mental comedy special, you reclaim the director's chair. The Stoics knew sometimes the last word belongs not to the obstacle, but to your quiet chuckle in its face. Epictetus split Stoic practice into 3 disciplines like a 3-legged stool where removing one leg collapses the entire structure. First comes the discipline of desire, training yourself to want only what's within your control. Next, the discipline of action, acting with integrity regardless of circumstances. Finally, the discipline of assent, pausing before accepting thoughts as truth. Most people struggle disproportionately with one leg. Your job, identify which wobbles most for you, then fortify it with precision. Start by auditing your reactions from the past week. When you felt frustration, was it because 1. Desire, you craved an outcome outside your control? E.g., I need them to like me. 2. Action, you compromised your values to avoid discomfort. E.g., I stayed silent to keep the peace. 3. Assent, you accepted a negative thought without scrutiny. E.g., I'm terrible at this. After one mistake for desire, try Epictetus, want what you have drill. List 3 things already in your possession: health, a skill, a relationship, and spend a day fully desiring just those. No longing for upgrades or additions. When your mind whispers, "But what if?" reply, "I already have what I need to practice virtue today." Modern research on desire shows that people who focus on appreciating present resources experience 28% higher life satisfaction than those chasing external validation. If action is your weak leg, adopt Marcus Aurelius' evening interrogations. Before bed, ask, where did I act against my principles today? Not to self-flagellate, but to spot patterns. Did you laugh at an offensive joke to fit in? Stay quiet when a colleague was mistreated. The goal isn't perfection, it's progressive alignment. One CEO used this method to realize he'd been prioritizing profits over employee well-being. His fix: instituting monthly ethics audits for all decisions. For assent, practice the 3 gates technique. When a negative thought arises, "I'll never succeed," ask 1. Is this absolutely true? Could never be hyperbole. 2. Is this thought helpful? Does believing it improve my next action? 3. Would I say this to someone I love? If not, why tolerate it for myself? A study in behavioral neuroscience found that participants using this method reduced automatic negative thoughts by 40% in 6 weeks. The discipline of assent isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about refusing to let unexamined narratives steer your life. Epictetus, who drilled these disciplines into his students, knew most collapse comes from imbalance. The dreamer who masters desire but neglects action becomes passive. The activist who excels in action but ignores assent burns out on unverified beliefs. Your personalized prescription: fortify your weakest leg daily until the stool stands unshaken, even when life kicks it. Try this now. Recall a recent emotional trigger. Which discipline would have transformed your reaction? That's your starting line. The 3 disciplines aren't philosophy, they're the operating system for unshakable resilience. Install them correctly and no storm can topple you. Philosophical meditation isn't about emptying your mind, it's about filling it with deliberate, razor-sharp thinking. While mindfulness teaches you to observe thoughts passively, Stoic meditation demands active engagement, like a surgeon dissecting their own mind. Picture Tim Ferriss, the entrepreneur and author, sitting with a notebook each morning, not jotting tasks but interrogating his own fears. What am I avoiding? What's the worst-case scenario if I fail? This isn't self-help fluff, it's mental boot camp. The ancient Stoics called it melete, a focused rehearsal of life's challenges, designed to strip away irrational fears and crystallize purpose. Here's how to practice it in 10 minutes flat. First, isolate the thought. Pick one nagging worry, say public speaking. Close your eyes and amplify it. Imagine stumbling on stage, hearing whispers, feeling your face flush. Now dissect it. Ask, what's the actual cost of this embarrassment? Will it kill me, ruin my career? Next, reframe it. Consider, could this humiliation actually teach me humility? Might it connect me with audience members who have also failed? Finally, prescribe it. Write down one action to confront the fear, maybe volunteering for a low-stakes presentation. This structured torment, facing fears head-on, is why Navy SEAL visualize missions gone wrong and why CEOs like Ferriss rehearse business disasters before breakfast. Modern science validates this ancient hack. A study in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that participants who practiced Stoic-style reflection for just 15 minutes daily reported 37% lower anxiety after 6 weeks. Another study tracking entrepreneurs revealed that those who paired goal setting with premeditated failure scenarios were twice as resilient when real setbacks hit. The magic lies in exposure therapy, not for phobias but for life itself. By willingly entering mental fire, you prove you can withstand the heat. Marcus Aurelius left us the ultimate template in meditations. HIS Chinese letter journal wasn't filled with affirmations but brutal self-interrogations. Why do you worry? What can't you control? What's truly yours to fix? Today's equivalent, Ferriss fear-setting exercise, where he lists worst-case scenarios for any decision, then systematically debunks them. If my business fails, I'll lose money but gain freedom to pivot. If critics mock me, I'll attract truer allies. This isn't optimism, it's strategic immunity building. Try this guided audio exercise right now. Press play on any voice memo app. Speak aloud one fear, then ask, what evidence proves this fear is certain? What's the smallest step I can take to reduce its power? Record your answers. The act of hearing your own voice confront irrationality without judgment rewires your brain's threat response. Ancient Stoics did this with wax tablets. You can do it with smartphones. The payoff: clarity that no amount of passive mindfulness can match. When you meditate like a Stoic, you don't just observe chaos, you dissect it, disarm it, and turn it into fuel. Epictetus, who trained students in this exact practice, put it bluntly: first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Philosophical meditation bridges that gap between aspiration and action, fear and freedom. Press stop on the recording and you'll already feel lighter. Not because the problem vanished, but because you finally see it for what it is, a thought, not a verdict. The Stoic test flips life's challenges from unpredictable threats into deliberate training sessions, like turning a battlefield into a dojo where every obstacle is your sparring partner. Imagine waking up and whispering to yourself, today's exam: patience when the coffee spills, clarity when the Wi-Fi crashes, grace when the criticism lands. This isn't just positive thinking, it's tactical rehearsal. The ancient Stoics didn't wait for disasters to strike. They designed mental drills to ensure when real storms hit, their response was muscle memory. James Stockdale, the Navy pilot turned Vietnam POW, survived 7 years of torture by weaponizing this exact hack. Beaten, starved, and isolated, he treated each day as a philosophy final where the stakes were life and death. His exam questions: how will I maintain dignity when they strip me naked? How can I communicate with tapped prisoners without words? By framing suffering as a test of his Stoic principles, Stockdale transformed his cell into a classroom. Later, he'd credit this mindset for keeping him and fellow prisoners alive, saying, "You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality." Here's how to construct your own Stoic test. First, identify your weak spots. Maybe road rage flares your temper, or rejection triggers self-doubt. Next, script the scenario. If someone cuts me off, I'll take a deep breath and assume they're rushing to a hospital. Then, simulate stakes. Place $1 in a jar every time you pass the test, donating it to a cause you hate if you fail. This isn't about punishment, it's about creating consequences that sharpen focus. Modern research on stress inoculation training shows that people who practice controlled exposure to triggers, like public speakers rehearsing in front of heckling friends, develop 50% more resilience under real pressure. The magic lies in reframing chaos as curriculum. A missed flight isn't just an inconvenience, it's your Composure 101 midterm. A rude comment isn't merely insulting, it's a pop quiz in emotional intelligence. Prisoners of war like Stockdale survived by grading themselves not on their conditions but on their responses. Shackled in darkness, a plus for creative mental exercises. Forced to stand for hours, passing marks for endurance. When you start scoring your reactions like a Stoic professor, suffering loses its power to define you. Try tonight's drill. Review your day as an exam grader. Award points for every calm response, deduct for emotional hijackings. Then design tomorrow's test. Maybe it's hold eye contact during criticism or smile at one minor annoyance. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Like a martial artist who welcomes tougher opponents, you'll soon catch yourself hoping for challenges just to see how much stronger you've become. That's the paradox of the Stoic test. The more you treat life as an exam, the less it feels like a trial. Seneca's words cut deeper today than ever. Life is long if you know how to use it. But here's the wake-up call. Modern science puts an exact number on that. If the average human lives around 30,000 days, that's it. 30,000 sunrises, meals, conversations. Now subtract the days you've already spent. Subtract the hours lost to sleep, chores, and distractions. What's left isn't just a number, it's the currency of your existence, ticking away while you scroll, hesitate, or tolerate what doesn't matter. This isn't morbid math, it's liberation in digits. Picture 2 timelines. One belongs to a woman who wakes at 45, realizing she's spent decades climbing a corporate ladder she no longer values. The other belongs to a man who, at 25, calculates he has roughly 18,000 days left, then starts pruning everything that doesn't align with writing the novel burning inside him. The difference isn't age or talent, it's the visceral awareness that time isn't abstract. It's a finite resource more precious than money because, unlike wealth, you can't earn it back. Here's your lifespan audit. Grab a calculator and 1. Estimate your remaining decade's average lifespans minus your age. 2. Multiply by 365 days per year. 3. Subtract 25% for sleep, maintenance, and unavoidable obligations. The result, your discretionary days, the ones where you truly get to choose. For a 30-year-old with average longevity, that's roughly 16,000 days. Suddenly, I'll start tomorrow feels like setting fire to $100 bills. This awareness becomes your ultimate filter. When faced with any decision, a job offer, a relationship, a weekend plan, ask, is this worth my remaining days? Not in a paralyzing way, but as a clarifier. That toxic friendship, maybe it's not bad, just not worth 50 of your 16,000, the soul-crushing job. At 2,000 hours a year, it's literally trading chunks of your life for a paycheck. The Stoics called this chronesthesia, mental time travel to evaluate choices from death's perspective. Modern psychologists call it temporal discounting, the tendency to undervalue future rewards until they feel immediate. Warren Buffett practices a version of this with his 25-slot rule. Imagine you only have 25 career moves left in your lifetime. Suddenly, mediocre opportunities lose their shine. The same applies to relationships, projects, even leisure. When Chef Anthony Bourdain faced his mortality, he didn't binge-watch TV. He traveled 8, connected, squeezing marrow from every moment. That's the power of the countdown clock. It doesn't rush you, it focuses you. Your final step, the urgency multiplier. Take your discretionary days and divide them into categories. Core relationships, family, close friends. How many conversations remain? If you see your parents monthly and they live 20 more years, that's just 240 visits. Creative work. How many truly productive hours do you have left? At 4 hours daily, that's 64,000 hours, enough to master multiple disciplines or build something monumental. Idle pleasures, even leisure, deserves intentionality. Is mindless scrolling how you want to spend 1% of your life? Seneca watched Romans waste lifetimes chasing status and wealth, only to weep on their deathbeds. His remedy: hold every hour in your grasp, lay hold of today's task, and you will not need to depend so much on tomorrow's. The shortness of life isn't a threat, it's the scalpel that cuts away the trivial. When Steve Jobs told graduates, "Death is life's change agent," he was channeling Stoicism. The deadline isn't looming, it's guiding. Try tonight's exercise, write a letter from your 80-year-old self. What do they thank you for starting now? What do they beg you to stop wasting time on? That imaginary elder isn't a ghost, they're the person you're becoming, one numbered day at a time. The clock's ticking, but here's the secret: that's not a warning, it's an invitation. Hierocles, a Stoic philosopher from ancient Greece, drew concentric circles in the sand to explain something revolutionary. Your identity isn't a single dot, but layers of responsibility radiating outward like ripples. At the center, you, next ring, family, then friends, community, country, and finally humanity. The goal, not to prioritize the inner circles over the outer ones, but to consciously pull the outer circles inward, to treat strangers with the care you'd give a neighbor, and neighbors like family. This isn't just kindness, it's a strategic framework for making decisions when roles clash. Imagine you're a parent missing your child's recital to meet a work deadline. The old you might default to guilt or defensiveness. The Stoic version, you'd consult your circles. Parent and professional are both core roles, but which duty, if neglected, causes irreversible harm? Missing one recital hurts less than failing to provide stability. But if you're always choosing work, the circles reveal imbalance. Hierocles' genius was recognizing that ethics aren't about rigid rules, but about dynamically adjusting your radius of care based on context. Here's how to map your own circles. Grab paper and draw 5 rings. Label each with a role: self, health, growth, kin, partner, kids, allies, friends, mentors, community, colleagues, local groups, humanity, global issues. Now assign one active duty to each. For self, maybe it's daily meditation. For kin, uninterrupted dinner chats. For humanity, monthly donations to effective charities. This isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. A CEO who maps this might realize they've been pouring energy into community board meetings while starving self-sleep reflection. Conflict resolution gets sharper with this tool. Use this 4-step template when roles collide. 1. Name the clash. My manager wants weekend work, professional circle, but my spouse needs me home, kin circle. 2. Weigh the stakes. Will working weekends once salvage a project, or is it a pattern eroding my marriage? 3. creative synthesis, can I delegate part of the work? Can I offer my spouse a makeup date night? 4. After action review, did this choice align with my long-term values or just short-term pressure? Marcus Aurelius faced this daily: emperor versus father, warrior versus philosopher. His journals show constant circle checking. At dawn, remind yourself, I'm meeting people today who will annoy me, but we share reason and the same divine spark. He pulled humanity's circle inward, viewing even adversaries as kin in the broader sense. Modern psychology echoes this. Studies on role conflict show that people who consciously rank their roles experience 30% less stress when demands compete. A nurse might prioritize patient care over book club member during a crisis, then rebalance later. The circles aren't cages, they're flexible boundaries helping you allocate limited energy wisely. Try tonight's exercise. Pick a recent dilemma: saying yes to a friend's favor while exhausted, or skipping a protest to care for a sick parent. Replay it through your circles. Where did you overextend, underinvest? The goal isn't guilt but calibration. Like a gardener tending different plants, each role needs distinct attention. Neglect the inner rings and you'll have nothing to give the outer ones. Starve the outer rings and your world shrinks. Epictetus, who taught hierarchals, put it bluntly: if you want to improve, be content to appear clueless in extraneous matters. Role ethics means accepting you can't be all things to all people, but you can be intentional about which circles get your light today. When you stop drifting between roles and start designing them, even tough choices become clear. Not easy, but clear. That's the power of knowing your rings. Most people end their day by numbly scrolling their phones or replaying workplace slights in their heads, but the Stoics transformed nightfall into their most powerful training ground. The evening review isn't just reflection. It's a surgical audit of your mind, like a blacksmith examining each day's work for cracks before reforging stronger metal. Picture Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest statesmen, sitting by lamplight with wax tablets, dissecting every conversation and impulse from dawn to dusk. Did he speak with unnecessary harshness? Did envy flicker when a rival flaunted success? These weren't guilt trips, they were calibration exercises to align tomorrow's actions with deeper principles. Modern research validates this ancient ritual. A Harvard study found that participants who spent just 6 minutes journaling about daily challenges at bedtime improved problem-solving skills by 23% compared to those who rehashed events passively. The key difference: structure. Where typical evenings wander through mental fog, the Stoic review shines a spotlight with laser-guided questions. Here's your 4-step template, refined from Marcus Aurelius' private journals. 1. The inventory. List 3 consequential moments: a difficult conversation, a temptation resisted or succumbed to, an unexpected obstacle. Unlike generic gratitude journals, this targets turning points where your character was tested. 2. The dissection. For each moment, ask, what did I assume in this situation? Were those assumptions justified? That coworker's curt email might have sparked anger, but was their tone truly malicious, or was your interpretation colored by hunger or stress? 3. The correction. Script a better response. If you snapped at your child over spilled milk, envision pausing to take a breath instead. Neuroscience shows mentally rehearsing improved behaviors primes neural pathways for real-world use. 4. The anchoring. Connect one lesson to a core virtue. Maybe patience with a slow cashier reinforced your commitment to kindness, or abandoning a pointless argument demonstrated wisdom. Contrast this with the average person's evening distracted by Netflix autoplay, haunted by half-processed regrets, waking groggy with yesterday's emotional baggage. The Stoic method clears the mental deck nightly. Admiral James Stockdale credited his evening review even in a Vietnamese prison cell for maintaining sanity amid torture. By categorizing each day's wounds and wins, he prevented suffering from accumulating into despair. Your downloadable worksheet intensifies this practice with prompts most avoid. Where today did I confuse urgent with important? What discomfort did I avoid that would have served my growth? When did external validation sway me more than my principles? The magic lies in specificity. Instead of "did I do my best," which invites vague self-flagellation, ask, "Did I listen fully when my partner spoke, or just wait for my turn to talk?" Concrete metrics reveal progress. Over weeks you'll spot patterns. Perhaps rushed mornings make you irritable by noon, or social media scrolling corrodes evening clarity. Epictetus warned students, progress isn't measured by how many books you read, but by how you live when no one's watching. The evening review turns that scrutiny inward. Tonight, trade passive screen time for 10 minutes under the microscope. Tomorrow, you'll wake not just rested but reformed. These 25 Stoic hacks aren't isolated tricks. They're interlocking gears in a mental fortress, each reinforcing the others like threads in an unbreakable tapestry. Picture the person you're becoming. They wake with the premeditation of dawn's challenges, then step into cold showers not to punish themselves but to prove comfort is optional. Traffic jams don't rattle them because the dichotomy of control has already sorted what's theirs to command. When criticism lands, they dissect it with objective representation before choosing a response, while lesser minds react like startled animals. They journal not to vent but to excavate their own blind spots with surgical precision. And when life hurls an obstacle, they don't just endure it, they flip it like a judo master, asking, "How can this serve me?" Because the art of inversion has trained them to spot hidden leverage points everywhere. This is the Stoic operating system running beneath their calm. Negative visualization has immunized them against disappointment. The view from above shrinks problems to their true size, and voluntary discomfort ensures no physical hardship can break their focus. They pause like a samurai between stimulus and response, wield the reserve clause to soften life's blows, and measure their days not in hours, but in opportunities to practice wisdom. Their relationships thrive through hierarchical circles of care, while their productivity soars from treating time as finite currency. They chuckle at absurdity without denying pain, because controlled laughter is their secret pressure valve. And when the world feels chaotic, they consult their inner sage, the highest version of themselves, who whispers, "This too is material for your growth." But here's the secret no Stoic text shouts: mastery isn't about perfection. It's about spotting when you've slipped from these practices and gently, firmly guiding yourself back. The untouchable mind isn't bulletproof, it's self-repairing. Like a blacksmith's blade, it's forged through repeated heating and hammering in life's furnace. Your mission starts now. Don't drown in all 25 hacks at once. Pick one, just one, that resonates most. Maybe it's the evening review to declutter your days, or the Stoic pause to break knee-jerk reactions. Practice it ruthlessly for 7 days. Notice how it alters your reflexes, your peace, your power. Then, when you're ready, we'll dive deeper into the advanced arsenal of Stoic war tactics for modern life. But first, prove you can wield one tool with precision. The path to becoming unshakable begins with a single step. Take yours today.